Good day, friends and foes. You know who you are. I'm Cal, and you're listening to Missing Links Movie Podcast, your weekly reel of the latest in film news. We're going to spend a bit of time today going over our top billed articles, new trailers and release dates, and what's opening in theaters this week. So whether you're a fan of Gangs of New York, Escape from New York, or Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, this is the podcast for you. The pod is currently on Spotify and YouTube on the channel Missing Link Movies. Without further ado, let's introduce our top billed stories this week, starting with the box office charts as usual. So last weekend, we opened with The Marvels, which unsurprisingly was number one, opened to $46 million, which, despite it being number one of the weekend, it's actually the lowest domestic opening weekend for an MCU movie, including The Incredible Hulk, which was like technically the first, but it was sort of a weird thing where it was like not originally conceived as an MCU movie, but then as they were making it, I think they somehow tied it in, and then they had that post-credit scene with Tony Stark going to talking to freak William Hurt, General Ross. That was $55 million. And that's not even adjusted for inflation. And ticket prices have gone up like 3 times since then, 2008. So very, very, very major disappointment for an MCU movie to only open to 46 million. Very poor, and it doesn't look like the legs are going to do it any good either. I'm not sure I'd have to look up what the budget was. I don't imagine it will be making much more than its budget back, if at all. I guess its budget was probably around 200 million. Another bummer in a year of bummers for Disney. So with that being said, number 2 was Five Nights at Freddy's. Number 3, Taylor Swift. Number 4, Priscilla. Number 5, Killers of the Flower Moon. Number 6, The Holdovers. Number 7, Journey to Bethlehem. Number 8, Tiger 3. Number 9, Radical. Number 10, Paw Patrol, the Mighty Movie. And I do not think The Marvels will hold on to number 1. I think most everyone who wanted to see it has now seen it. The new Hunger Games movie opens this week, and while the reviews haven't been great, they've been middling, sort of like The Marvels. It's been getting around the same sort of reviews where it's not horrible, but not too noteworthy either. I think it'll track to take number 1 spot, and Marvels will not hold on to that. So that's the box office charts. Our next headline is just a quick update about the strikes that are now over. This comes from the Hollywood Reporter's Rick Porter. The SAG-AFTRA board approves new contract. So SAG-AFTRA's national board has approved the tentative agreement between the Actors Union and studios and streamers that ended the 118-day actor strike. The board voted to accept the deal with 86% approval. So that's that, I suppose. So the deal includes general wage hikes of 7% in the first year, 4% in 2024, and 3.5% in 2025. The agreement includes language on performing capture regarding self-taping of auditions, requiring intimacy coordinators for scenes involving sex and nudity, new terms regarding hair and makeup for all performers, including actors of color. I'm curious about that. And informed consent and fair compensation for the creation of digital replicas of a performer, whether they're living or dead. The AI protections also cover consent and compensation if part of an actor's face or body is used in creating a synthetic performer via generative AI. It wasn't 100%. It wasn't unanimous. It was 86%. And I saw another article where some of the people who voted no did so because they were dead set on there being just a hard line, no AI. The compromise they were able to work out is, fair compensation and things of that nature. But some of the people who voted no, some of that 14%, they just wanted flat out line in the sand, no AI. So that was their reasoning. But now that it's approved, it'll go into effect and all that. So next headline is about the whole Warner Brothers Coyote versus Acme scandal we talked about last week. Just as a recap, it was revealed that this Coyote versus Acme movie, Coyote, Wile E. Coyote, Looney Tunes, was a movie that was finished, completed, had really good test audience scores, was coming out, was Warner Bros. Decided to shelve it and just use it as a tax write-off, whatever that means. And a lot of people got ticked off, for putting all the work into this movie that was completed and will never see the light of day. But reported a few days ago, by Aaron Couch and James Hibbard at the Hollywood Reporter, Warner Bros. Reverses course on Coyote versus Acme after filmmakers rebel. Article says the studio will now allow director Dave Green to shop his live-action animation hybrid movie to other potential buyers instead of shelving the project for a tax write-off, the Hollywood Reporter has confirmed. Amazon is said to be a contender, with screenings for potential buyers taking place this month. Puck was first to report the news of the reversal. The move comes days after the Hollywood Reporter broke the news that Coyote vs. Acme would become Warner's third already shot film to get shelved after previously nixing nearly completed projects Batgirl and Scoob Holiday Haunt in August 2022. So, according to sources, after the Coyote vs. Acme news broke last week, several filmmakers instructed reps to cancel meetings they had on the books with Warner's. But now that Coyote may ultimately find a new home, these filmmakers are taking a wait-and-see approach. So, writer-director Ben David Grabinski, who worked with Green on the movie Happily, Coyote vs. Acme is a great movie, the best of its kind since Roger Rabbit. The leads are super likable, it's beautifully shot, the animation is great, the ending makes everyone cry. I thought the goal of this business was to make hit movies. I saw Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who did the Spider-Verse movies, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, 21 and 22 Jump Street. It might have been only one of them. I don't know if it was both, but one of them. Also saw Coyote versus Acme and said it was really great. And I just love the final paragraph of this article. Interestingly, the plot of Coyote vs. Acme follows the speechless, ever-determined Wile E. Coyote as he teams up with a lawyer, played by Will Forte, to fight the big Acme Corporation. Just like in the cartoons, Coyote buys Acme devices to try and kill Roadrunner, but they never work properly and often abruptly explode. The third shelved Warner's movie, in other words, is the story of an underdog taking on a heartless company whose executives don't realize there can be real consequences to making their products blow up in your face. Sounds awfully familiar. Very meta. So, I'm for the best of its kind since Roger Rabbit. That is a bold claim. That is very bold. Because at least with Batgirl, they said that one of the reasons they decided to do that as a tax write-off is it just wasn't coming together. The quality just wasn't there. Scoob Holiday Haunt, I'm sure had a lot of hard work and passion put into it, but the first Scoob was not fantastic. So I think it can be argued not that the shelving of those projects was justified, considering they were completed, but they sort of had that excuse to fall back on. But it doesn't, from how filmmakers are reacting to this news, it really seems like there was a quality movie they had on their hands, but lost faith in for some reason. So it's great that we'll get to see it. It may indeed come out and just turn out to be a good decent movie. Yeah, I have to say, like, I'm just thinking about the live-action animation Tom and Jerry movie that came out a few years ago to no significant acclaim. And that had Michael Pena and was it? It was it Anna Sophia Robb or like Emma Roberts or something like that. So a couple of bigger names, but ultimately was not a super impressive movie. I can't help but feel like Coyote versus Acme could be similar, just like, but hopefully it's a lot better movie, and I'm glad we'll get to see it. I don't think we would want that to just like never see the light of day, regardless of its, average or excellent. So we'll have to see where it ends up, but it sounds like Amazon is a strong contender for it. Our next headline comes from The Hollywood Reporter's Kirsten Chuba. Taika Waititi says he's a bit fatigued by big studio movies, seeks smaller projects like new film, next goal wins. I suppose I could have put this in the grab bag section because it's not necessarily news, but I just thought it was an interesting update on a prolific director who is coming out, with this movie Next Goal Wins, and coming off, it's his newest movie since Thor: Love and Thunder, which critically had a lot of people questioning his directorial talent, even though he had already come out with so many bangers beforehand. But he basically says in this interview that he says, I don't know, I'm a bit fatigued by working on those big films, studio films, which is why I've come back to do smaller films like this. My next film will be a smaller one. He did say that if they wanted him back for the next Thor, he would be happy to, but he won't be upset if they don't go with him for another Thor, et cetera, et cetera. So just, yeah, I mean, Next Goal Wins hasn't been getting the best of reception. It premiered at Toronto Film Festival a couple months ago. Didn't rock the world there. So, but I do think smaller films are more right for him. I mean, because seriously, it's like, okay, maybe these last two movies are maybe a bit of will maybe be a bit of a wake up call for him, to maybe reflect on what his previous works did really well. I mean, granted, Next Goal Wins is a great great win for Indigenous representation, and that's something to be like remarked, a positive. But ultimately, the representation itself won't do all the heavy lifting. So I would love to see more of that, that more movies of that nature, but just with better. I haven't seen Next Goal Wins myself, so I can't comment on what's wrong with it. But with the reviews I read, it just didn't quite come together in an impressive way. So I think he's still got great talent. Like I said, his previous works. Pretty much everything from before Thor: Love and Thunder have all been really great. So we'll have to see how his next projects will go. And then, so our last headline comes from Variety's Caroline Brew. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow taps Anna Nogueira to write DC Studios feature. Anna Nogueira is set to write Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which is being developed by DC Studios. The film, centering on Superman's cousin Kara Zor-El and her superdog Krypto, has yet to be attached to a director. I did not realize that. I didn't know it had been announced that Krypto was the superdog was going to be in it. So Nogueira is an actor and playwright. Oh, she had been hired to write a Supergirl movie in 2022, but the original project was scrapped when James Gunn and Peter Safran took over leadership for DC Studios. But but sounds like they brought her back to write a movie featuring the same character in in this new universe. Describing the upcoming Supergirl film, Gunn cited Tom King's comics as an inspiration and called the new film character a very different type of Supergirl and much more hardcore. Noguera's acting credits include The Vampire Diaries, The Michael J. Fox Show, and The Blacklist. As a playwright, she is known for penning the 22 off-Broadway play Which Way to the Stage, and is currently working on an adaptation of Alice Sola Kim's Mother's Lock Up Your Daughters. So kind of a up-and-comer writing this movie, but I hear the comics it's based on. I'm not super familiar with DC Comics, but the reactions I've seen to this, apparently this is based off of some comics called Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which, I've seen positive reception to. So things are moving in the DC universe. And so this is a, new universe, different from the last few years of movies they've been coming out with. Aquaman, Justice League, Batman versus Superman. This is a new thing, not in the same universe as The Batman with Robert Pattinson, not in the same universe as Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, but its own universe. So, as confusing as that is, that's a wrap on our top stories. Now let's fly in the grab bag section where I share, some stuff that isn't the biggest news, but is fun to talk about regardless. This week is a bunch of miscellaneous Marvel news. So if you're into the MCU, just a lot of quick things that have been developing over there. I have to wonder if some of this is, because I don't think any of this has necessarily come straight from Marvel Studios. But I have to wonder if they're letting this stuff, letting these headlines get out there to try to maintain interest with the Marvels is not projected to perform very well. I have to wonder if, they're kind of letting this stuff out to still keep people talking about the MCU. So our first headline is Pedro Pascal is in talks to play Reed Richards. This came from Deadline. Pedro Pascal, he plays the Mandalorian in The Mandalorian. He played Joel in HBO's The Last of Us adaptation. He played the villain in Wonder Woman 84, the only good thing about that movie. So he's a very charismatic guy. Playing Reed Richards is an interesting choice because they just seem like very different types of people. Reed Richards is very, what's the word? Sort of a straight man, very cerebral, I think is the right word. Like he's a thinking man, he's a science guy, but not in the way that like Tony Stark is, where he's, quippy and, he's a dedicated family man and, is just sort of straight-laced a little more than you would normally expect coming from Pedro Pascal. But again, he played Joel excellently in Last of Us. So I think he can make it work for sure. As for other reasons, I think Marvel Studios is also looking for a charismatic person who is charismatic both on and off screen to play Reed Richards, because I think they've struggled to establish new characters that people are really attached to. With, the original kind of first saga of movies, you had RDJ as Tony Stark, you had Chris Evans as Captain America, Chris Hemsworth as Thor, even Chris Pratt, the third Chris, as Peter Quill, Star-Lord in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I think those were all characters that were really charismatic and played by people who are charismatic in real life too. That I think helped people become attached to the characters and, became very interested in their stories. And I think as demonstrated by the most recent string of MCU movies, audiences have failed to attach themselves to a new character or a set of characters that they're interested in. Tom Holland's Spider-Man is sort of wild card, because with the Sony partnership, it's never too sure of like, yeah, I mean, it's been what, almost 4 years now, 3 years, 2 years since No Way Home, and not really any solid word of whether we're getting another Tom Holland Spider-Man, even though that is a character I think people are definitely attached to at this point. So circling back around, I think Pedro Pascal is, they're kind of banking on him to be that new character that audiences can get really attached to, that can kind of be the forefront of the MCU. I think they wanted to try Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange. I think that was one of the original plans. I think him and Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther were kind of going to be the leads of the MCU going forward. Maybe even Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. But unfortunately, obviously, Chadwick Boseman passed away. The support for Doctor Strange in his sequel did not materialize, and now we're seeing that the same is holding true for the Marvels with Captain Marvel. So I think they're going to try again, and Pedro Pascal is granted really charismatic and could bring something to that role. I think would be cool. Next Marvel kind of thing is one of the next Avengers movies. They've got 2 on the schedule: King Dynasty and Secret Wars. King Dynasty had Daniel Cretton. Crap, is it Daniel Destin or D.D. Cretton, who directed Shang-Chi? He was slated to Destin Daniel Cretton. He was attached to direct the King Dynasty, but he has now exited it. However, he's still working on Shang-Chi 2 and a series called Wonder Man for the MCU. So he's still on those. He's not like leaving the MCU entirely, just probably leaving to focus on those projects. And honestly, that may be because of the whole Jonathan Majors stuff, who's playing Kang in these movies. They may be trying to figure out what to do with him. And so in the meantime, they've taken Cretton off of King Dynasty, because I don't even know if they're sure they're going to do that movie, which is really too bad. You know, I mean, the Jonathan Majors stuff is horrible, but Kang's a great comic character. So, oh well. And then lastly, we have just today, it's been leaked, that Stephen Ewan, who played Glenn in the Walking Dead movies, he starred in the Minari movie a couple years ago. He plays Invincible in the Amazon animated series. He is apparently playing Sentry in some upcoming MCU project. It'll probably be Thunderbolts, which is something coming. Really, I think this is an even crazier choice of casting than Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, because Sentry is in the comics is a tall, blue-eyed, long blonde hair, super buff superhero. He's kind of like a Superman with long blonde hair. So maybe even a cross between Thor and Superman. But Stephen Ewan is just kind of an average dude. Which nothing wrong with that, but just like to play a character like Sentry is an interesting choice. But I have no quarrel with Stephen Ewan. I have no problem with this. I don't think the Sentry is like an iconic enough character to say he needs to be white. He needs to be super tall and buff. He needs to have long blonde hair. I don't think that really applies to Sentry. He's kind of a, I don't know, even a C or D list character that I think is open for some interpretation. So, and yeah, Stephen Ewan is awesome. So, really cool. On to our next section of new trailers and release dates. Our first trailer is Madam Web, if you saw this. So this is a spunk movie, which stands for Sony Pictures Universe of Marvel Characters. So it's not in the MCU proper. It's tangential, I guess, somehow. The trailer looks horrible. It looks like a bad movie. It's really confusing what the story is. It looks like there's like some evil Spider-Man guy who's like attacking this group of girls who all have spider powers, maybe. And they're all connected somehow. It looks bad. It's from the writers of same writers as Morbius. And if that tells you anything, I mean, some of the lines in the line delivery, the lines themselves, just like bad. It'll be bad, but it's coming February 14th, 2024. Another new trailer is a new animated Garfield movie that's coming May 24th, 2024, starring Chris Pratt, which, again, this trailer was looking all right until Garfield started talking, and it was just Chris Pratt's regular voice coming out. Very questionable choice for that. Chris Pratt, I mean, he's a fine guy. He did great as Mario, but as Garfield, it just does not fit. I don't think. And then finally, I can't remember if we covered this last week, but there was an Inside Out 2 teaser that's coming out June 14th, 2024, and should be interesting. With Disney, looking for a win, I think they're going to try looking at some properties that they know they can bank. Well, let's see. I was going to say properties they know they can bank on, but that's in question now. What can they bank on? Because the MCU is what it used to be. Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and none of those have been super. But Inside Out was a really successful Pixar movie. I didn't include this. I guess I could have included this in Grab Bag or whatever. But the Disney CEO, Bob Iger, just recently said that Frozen 4 is in the works, even though Frozen 3 isn't even out yet. But it's being worked on. So I think they're, wanting to bank on those. But we'll see about that. So, short episode this week. I'm going to be honest, I'm super exhausted. Had a late night last night. And so I could go, a lot longer talking about some of the more, some more headlines or anyways, as we close out, remember to come back next week. No. I have to talk about what's coming this weekend, of course. Yeah. Okay, so opening this weekend, we've got The Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Review-wise, that has been pretty middling, like I said, like the Marvels. But I think, regardless, it'll take the top spot at the box office this weekend. We got Thanksgiving, a horror mystery thriller starring Patrick Dempsey. And that's directed by Eli Roth. Trolls Band Together. That's the animated Trolls with Anna Kendrick and Justin Timberlake. I'm going to be honest, the second one, Trolls World Tour, was kind of a guilty pleasure. I saw that movie twice and I liked it. Not a bad movie, but most of it came from the visual aspect, just the art direction. I was really impressed with, but that's coming from me, who's just really into animation. So, Next Goal Wins. That's Taika's movie with Michael Fassbender, which, despite the reviews, I still want to go see it. I want to give it a go, regardless. And then finally, a horror movie called Do Not Disturb, which is dated 2022. So I wonder if that's just a U.S. release. Just now, might be an international movie. I don't know. So, all right. As we close out, remember to come back next week. Tell your friends, family, pets who love movies about the podcast. Trying to think what I watched. Last week I watched David Fincher's new movie, The Killer, with Michael Fassbender. That got some good... some decent rave at TIFF. It's a Netflix movie, so you won't have to go to theaters to see it. It was pretty good. Not my favorite of Fincher's. Some really interesting subversions of the kind of John Wick archetype, the hitman archetype. So, well, actually, it's a revenge story in effect, but it's not like John Wick. It's not like the cliche where they think they're out, but they get pulled back in. Michael Fassbender's character is just in the midst of it. But it does involve some revenge after a hit is put out on him, but his girlfriend partner is kind of caught in the middle. And so he goes on revenge. But there's a lot of interesting concepts just in the way that Michael Fassbender's character sees the world, sees his job, and how he sees it in his mind, and then contrasted with how it plays out in reality. And and just like a lot of interesting choices with, whether it be an action scene or something really intense in any other movie about a hitman. Fincher chooses to just kind of have it be chill, have it be, more, moving more slowly. But that's not to say it's a boring movie. Ultimately I wasn't like super impressed with the conclusion of the movie, but some really interesting ideas, and I appreciated those for what they were. So that's that. Thank you for watching/listening. I wonder if I've been saying thanks for watching this whole time I've been doing this podcast, not realizing that I don't have a video version yet. I hope to eventually. I hope to eventually be doing this like with a green screen behind me at a desk, or with cool movie posters behind me. That would be cool. Hopefully one day. But thanks for listening. We'll now return you to your regularly scheduled life. Bye-bye.